What's poppin', y'all? Fanum came back and he gave a take. We talked about him previously when he talked about the situation with streaming this year, and he gave another update. And I do think there's a lot of insight that we can get into here, and from trends that I've seen that have happened already. So I'm gonna play you guys the clip first, and then I'm gonna give you some examples.
And by the way, I think streaming right now, I don't want to say nothing because everything, like, I feel like I be saying and then just get twisted. But I feel like it's so much going on that it almost feel like nothing going on in a weird way. I don't know how to explain it, bro. I have a bad way with certain things. I just know, like, it's the feeling that I'm trying to portray. But whatever, it's just everybody trying to do everything. You feel me? And I'm not trying to be like nobody. I'm trying to make sure I be like myself.
So I agree with him completely here, and I'll give you an example. When he talks about, like, it's part of it is overstimulated, where you're like, yo, there's a phase subathon that's going to be happening, and then there's also Kai Cenat Mafia-thon, and then there's all of these big events, and Speed's doing his USA tour, and it feels like these things are not as hyped as the European tour or the Asia tour. And I don't know if it's because people are seeing it more often, but I know you guys feel it too. Like, you see the clips, but it feels like it's a custom now, where the clips are being posted because that's what the clip pages are supposed to do, versus people excited to clip it, and then people are excited to reply. Now it's just like, oh yeah, he's doing that thing that he's supposed to do. Same thing with Kai Cenat. Oh yeah, he's doing that thing he's supposed to do, because the rate that he's gaining subs, like, it doesn't have that hit that it once did. And with Fanum is somebody that has always been himself, and he's somebody that's predicted all of these trends. Like, the guy brought Kai Cenat into the AMP house. He saw him streaming. He saw the potential that he had, and he said, yo, get out of your dingy apartment in the Bronx with your family and come here in Atlanta. I'm going to house you, and you're going to grind it out. And now the guy's the biggest streaming star in America. So Fanum knows a thing or two, more than a thing or two. But I'll give you guys another example, which is this guy Lacey. So FaZe Lacey, he gives his take on why streaming is going downhill, and I'm going to play you guys that right now.
Let's talk real for a sec. The standard for streaming is all the way up here. If you go live and you don't have anything planned and you just want to sit at your desk and talk to the chat and just relax, kick back, vibe with your stream, all people say is L content. Go IRL, go do this. No content. Didn't plan anything today. Never plan. No content. Why did it turn into that? I genuinely feel like that's why streamers are taking breaks. Look at Ron taking a break. Marlon just didn't stream for a week. Because I feel like for some reason, the way streaming has become, if there's nothing big planned or no big event, people don't want to stream because the chat expects and has this standard of you got to do that. I think we should go back to the days where you could literally spark up at 8 p.m. if you wanted to, and the chat is happy. And people are happy. How nice life was, bruh. Why are y'all saying, oh, I go live, right? And I'll end my stream off for the last 4 hours, me just talking to the chat, playing a game. And then I look over at the chat and I see, oh, L content. Bro didn't plan anything today. Go do something. Why are you just sitting here? I look over, I see chat not moving. View bot. This guy's botting.
This is a very, very good point. And it's not that history repeats itself. It's that there's really nothing new under the sun, and people rehash things often, but trends. So right now, huge events, budgets, production, like remember, like DDG, Are You My Ball, that happened. There was a huge production into that show. In Too Deep, Black Boy Max, there's a huge production. It's almost like TV. It's like Love Island. And then you've got Mafia-thon. That costs a ton of money. And you've got Speed's tour. This guy's got a bus, and it's like theatrics. It's like the first time you saw drone footage. You remember when vlogs were going on YouTube and you saw Casey Neistat drone footage, and you saw, I think it was Jesse Wellen who was the first one that was using the drones. But you saw drone footage, you were like, whoa, just any footage of aerial from a drone in a vlog, you were like, this is crazy. But after a while, after a bunch of other vloggers start using it, you're like, okay, here we go, another drone shot. And now it's really nothing special. It doesn't have that novelty I guess you could say. Same thing with Mr. Beast. When Mr. Beast first got into the game, throwing in these crazy budgets on these huge videos, it was wild. People were like, whoa, I've never seen something like this. This is insane. And giving away this much money. And then you had other people copying him, following the meta. So you had people like Eric, you had like people like Tyler Oliveira. There was this whole genre called the Mr. Beastification of YouTube. And people got numb to it. And even Mr. Beast has confirmed, I think today the news came out, that he confirmed that he's slowing down his videos. He's not doing the loud stuff anymore. He's not doing the fast-paced stuff. He's slowing it down. He's making it more story-based. And he's pivoting away from what he was doing. And that's because people got numb to it. They're like, okay, another one of these. And I think that's the same thing that's happening in streaming, because there was the Mr. Beastification of YouTube, which was, oh, you got to maximize retention and you got to cut out any pauses and you got to make sure that the person's just spazzing out like a Logan Paul vlog. And then at the peak of that era of YouTube, what happened? We got a superstar on YouTube that blew up, that was getting disgusting views compared to everybody else, and that was Sam Sulek. And Sam Sulek was just a bodybuilder that was really calm, wasn't loud, wasn't screaming, not even like the era of bodybuilders that were like hawking cigs or chilling with chicks, right? Like the Stimulus, like what era was that? I'm forgetting his name. He's unfortunately, I think he's getting heart failure right now. Skywalker, yeah. Skywalker, you guys know who I'm talking about. If you know, you know. But there was like that high energy stuff. And Sam Sulek wasn't even that. He was just calm, driving to the gym, talking, doing his workout, and he blew up. And people didn't quite understand it. He wasn't the biggest guy. There were people bigger than him. There were people more lean than him. There were people that were professionals. There were people that were older. There were people that were doing other content. But it just swung the opposite way. And for a long time, streaming was largely just desktop streaming. And it was gaming originally. But then it became people doing just chatting / IRL. You had a little bit of IRLs. And then the Aiden Ross really took things to another level. So this started with the Aiden. If it's anything, it's the Aiden Ross. And then I would say it is Kai Cenat for sure. But the production started coming in. And I think we're going to get to a point very soon. And this is why Bruce Drop Him Off coming back is so important. Because he's a guy that came up in his room. And XQC is an example of that too. This guy came up in his room. Granted, XQC blew up initially because he was really, really, really good at video game. Bruce Drop Him Off, he was a personality that was just online. But him coming back is like, yo, you can get these numbers just being you and kicking it with your community and being entertaining. And you don't need all of this other stuff. Like a lot of people say DDG needs girls and he needs to collaborate and he needs to create these storylines. What I think is going to happen, I don't think we've hit this peak yet. It might happen in a year or so. Because think about it. iShowSpeed this year has jumped over 2 cars. Like the certain events that have happened this year in streaming are once a year events or even like once in 5-year events. You're like, yo, that guy jumped over 2 cars. Speed jumped over a car, number one. And then he jumped over 2 cars. And that was old news like a week later because he just did some other crazy thing. And that's unsustainable. And I want to drag this back to music because I think the same thing happens with music. You need spacing in between drops or in between huge events in this scenario. Like there needs to be room to breathe or else you're not going to appreciate it as much. Like if a movie, like a feature film, they were able to release one every single day, you wouldn't appreciate them as much. And like let's say Drake, right? Let's look at Drake's biggest hits. You've got One Dance, God's Plan, Hotline Bling, Passion Fruit, In My Feelings, Nice for What, Sicko Mode. That was with Travis Scott, but let's just throw that in there. Tootsie Slide, Nonstop, Hell. Let's just say those are 10. What is that? 9, 10? Anyway, there are more hits than that. But you've got all those songs. If those songs released one on each day, you release One Dance Monday, God's Plan Tuesday, by day 5 or 6, one of these songs is getting called mid. I promise you. Because he's dropping too much. Same thing with, now Future is somebody that was dropping a ton, and people were appreciating it, but there got to a time around Evol, which was Love Backwards, around there where people were like, yo, you got to chill, man. It's part of it is not being able to consume as much, but value comes in scarcity too. And Kai Cenat, like, there are people that are criticizing Kai Cenat's Mafiathon, and they're saying, like, man, all he's doing is just begging for subs and like a short segment, and they're not being grateful. For this guy brought on Kim Kardashian, Offset, Tyla, Ice Spice, Sway Lee, Drewski. Did he have Wembenyama on there? He had Mario. He had Neo. Who else? This guy had the Chainsmokers DJing a set inside his bathroom. This is just what I'm remembering off the top of my head, and I haven't been watching a lot of these Kai. He had the Jonas Brothers on there, Keke Palmer. Hey, who else? Dude, all of these people, and people still find something to be ungrateful for. And this is the thing. Every guest of this could have been a once in every 3 month thing, and it would have been a huge event. Like, remember when Ninja was streaming with Drake? That was an internet shattering event. It was the first time those two worlds collided with the biggest thing, which was Fortnite. But if you're just throwing celebrity after celebrity after celebrity, then it gets dull. And I think those streamers get categorized in something that is not fashionable anymore. Because, like, what's fashionable, what's cool, it's always moving in cycles. So what I think is going to happen with streaming, eventually, maybe in a year, maybe a year and a half, maybe someone's blowing up right now, is someone that is just authentic, kind of dull, like not dull. He has to be entertaining, but not entertaining in the way that everyone else is right now. And like one thing I was talking about was this guy Hitch from years ago. He never really properly blew up, but his concept was so dope, which was just a guy that was hitching a ride. Like he wasn't living anywhere, and he was relying on people to pick him up to go across cities and the country. I think he did it across multiple countries. And I always watched that guy's streams. I would have him on. And I was like, man, this is such a cool concept. And he never really blew up. But something like that, I see that becoming the new meta eventually. Because the streamers that are smaller are not going to be able to compete unless they clout chase, right? Or not clout chase. It's a little bit of, it's like kind of knocking them down, unless they network or get the attention of one of these big guys, because you're going to get priced out of production. And I do think people like DDG are realizing more production is not resulting in a proportional return on investment. So DDG is probably looking at it like, yo, I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this thing. It didn't blow me up, and it didn't make me that much money. I could have made this same amount of money, or I could have made 10% less money spending 80% less than I spent on this. So why would I continue to do this? It doesn't make sense. And yeah, I could see a new house blow. Like, for example, if there's a house of entertaining streamers that are struggling, right? Like, these guys are all trying. I see a new crew blowing up. I could see that happening. Of course, it's difficult to make things like this happen, but it's that authentic wanting to root for the underdog that is what's eventually going to become cool. And it's hard because now this is somewhat of an industry. Like, their clipping is a mandatory thing now, and you have to know how to do it. So either you know how to do it or you have the funds to do it. But if you're trying to grind as a streamer, you don't really have the funds for it. And if you have the funds, then you're probably not streaming and you already have an income source, or maybe you want to stream, but you don't have enough time to stream because of the dedication that you have to have to the income source that's generating the money that you would spend on clippers. So right now, there's kind of this monetary moat that's being created around the biggest streamers, and it's just going to take time and new. I don't want to say these guys aren't authentic, but new DIY people are going to blow up, because the same thing happened in music. Like, we had 2010s, right? You had early 2010s especially. That was like peak pop rap too. You had so much money being spent. Like, you had Lasers, right? Atlantic making Lupe Fiasco make a Lasers album. It's like, that's how you know these guys were on it. They were like, yeah, this is what's gonna hit. And you had people like, who else? Like Tiny Tempa. You had Jason Derulo. You had Tayo Cruz. All of this stuff. And into 2015. And then 2016, 17, you start getting this underground that really, really bubbles up. And it was starting off from A$AP Rocky era, but it really starts to take off. And then you've got people like X and Ski dropping songs that sound terrible. They're not polished. They're not pop. They were recorded on garbage mics, and people loved it. And people loved that energy, and they loved those people, and No Jumper was built off of the back of something like that. And I see that happening again in streaming. It's not going to continue like this. Yeah, there will be the biggest channels that are kind of like TV, and there's production, but the audiences will move. And I can almost guarantee that happening. And that's what I think Fanum is saying, is that so much is going on that it just feels like another TV channel. Okay, this guy's doing this guy's doing this show. And it's not like when Kai Cenat was doing the first Mafia-thon or the second one, it was like, whoa, this is the only guy that's doing something like this. And then everyone steps up their game. And you constantly got to be pivoting and doing new things, which I think Kai is doing. But maybe the third one, and it makes sense why he said the third one would be the last one, because he knew when to cut it. But I think that's enough on this topic. But let me know what y'all think in the comments. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed. And I'm going to see y'all in the next one.